You gentlemen seen your midterm grades yet?
Well, they're not posted yet, sir.
2 C's, 2 D's, and an F. That's a 1.2 grade average. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
This is WICR.
Baseball season's underway. Well, you better get ready for a brand new day. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. They're singing, go Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go! Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs, go!
Oh yes, go Cubs go, and the hey Chicago, what do you say? Are the Cubs going to win today? Oh yes, they won, and they won them all. From the basement of La Penta, this is your host, The Rock is on this Thursday, first Thursday of November, November 3rd, 2016, on a warm Thursday, November, needless to say. We got to jump, we have a lot of things to talk about. We got to dive right into the World Series, because obviously that was probably one of the greatest games, postseason games, I have ever seen. It's right up there with Game 6 of the 2001 World Series between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the New York Yankees. Game 6 in the 2011 World Series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Texas Rangers. That's how good this game was last night between the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians. And the Cubs defeated the Indians by that score of 8-7 in 10 innings. But this game, I'm telling you, this game this was an instant classic. You know, the Cubs, they jumped off to a quick start with Dexter Fowler having the leadoff home run off Corey Kluber, who was making his second consecutive start off short rest. And the Indians tied it, made it 1-1. Cubs were pulling away. It was 5-1. Kluber didn't have his stuff. Baez hit a home run. David Ross hit a home run off Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller was gassed. But, you know, the Indians, they fought back. They scored 2 runs on a wild pitch, made it 5-3 off John Lester. Then Cubs increased the lead to 6-3. It was 6-3 going to the 8th inning. And you had Aroldis Chapman. And, you know, he didn't look, how can I say this? Chapman did not look like he was tired or he was feeling any sort of fatigue through the first part, though. But, you know, as that 8th inning progressed, though, or the later innings progressed as he pitched, you can tell he was just out of it. He was gassed. You know, there was one inning where he was just throwing all sliders. You know, he didn't even have the strength to throw it 100 miles like he's always known for. But he comes in the 8th inning. Brandon Guyer hits an RBI double, cuts the lead to 6-4. Then, what I thought was a momentum changer for the Indians, and when this happened, I thought the Indians were going to win, was when Rajai Davis hit the game-tying 2-run homer in left field off Aroldis Chapman. And, you know, if you saw the play, or you saw his batting stance, he was choked up on the bat. You know, at least a good 3-4 inches. Not 3-4, but like 2-3 inches, excuse me. He choked up, though. And he hit the game-tying 2-run homer, and I thought, it's this is typical Cubs baseball, you know. When you think they have it, they don't, and they just blow it at the very end. But, you know, and then what made it even more interesting this game was it went into extra innings, and there was a rain delay. And now that's kind of unprecedented if you think about it. A rain delay in Game 7 of the World Series. Winner-take-all game. But it wasn't a long rain delay, but still, the fact there was a rain delay in the 7th game of the World Series kind of just shows what this series was all about. And then the Cubs tacked on 2 runs in the top of the 10th beat the Indians. Indians scored a run, which was a Rajai Davis RBI single in the bottom of the 10th. Had the tying run at on base, winning run at the plate. Michael Martinez, pitch hitter, grounded out to third baseman Chris Bryant, out at first, and the Cubs are world champions. Now, when you look at this game, there are a lot of things that you could say, oh, that was a momentum changer. This was the play that you gave hope. If you're a Cubs fan or if you rooted for the Cubs to win the World Series, this was the play. This was the moment that the Cubs were going to win. That when you saw it happen, you're like, that's what's going to happen. But I thought there's two things that I think changed momentum, or that made momentum sway towards the Cubs, and that was early in the game. One was early in the game when Chris Bryant, he tagged from third, and I forgot who hit it. I think it was it Hayward? I forgot who it was, but somebody from the Cubs hit a short fly ball to left field, and Bryant was at third. So when you think it's a shallow fly ball, runner at third, he's not going to tag, right? That's not what Chris Bryant did. He judged that ball. He knew how far that ball was hit. As soon as Rajai Davis, the center fielder, or who was playing center field at the time, caught the ball, he was going to book it. And he did. And that just shows, it's Game 7. You can't leave any stones unturned. You got to leave it all out there. You got to be decisive. When you make a decision, you got to go with it. You can't second guess yourself. And that's what Chris Bryant did. So I thought, and, the throw was it was a good throw. It was somewhat of a good throw. Little high, though. But if you saw the replay, Davis had maybe half a second delay. And he wasn't even he didn't even think that Bryant was going to tag. If you're a baseball player in that situation, you got to be throwing home regardless. Or hit the cutoff man, at least. You got to be thinking, oh, this guy's going to tag. This guy's going to tag. And then you got to throw home or throw to the cutoff man. So that was one momentum changer, I thought, for the Cubs. And that happened after the Indians tied the game 1-1 early in the game. And then a second one was in the top of the 10th. After the rain delay, after Jason Hayward gave his speech, the Cubs, they had the heart of the order coming up. There was many questions. Oh, were they going to be rusty? How are they going to get out of this mentally? They had a 3-run lead in the 8th inning. What are they going to do? How are they going to respond to adversity? You know what? Kudos to Joe Madden and the Cubs players for dealing with adversity and just striking it in the face, because that's what they did last night. There's no disputing and there's no denying that. Another momentum changer I thought was when Kyle Schwarber had the game. He let off that inning, with a single to right field. And then you had Ruben Amaro Jr. pitch run for him. And then Chris Bryant came to the plate. Hits a deep fly ball to center field. Initially, it looked like it was going to be gone. It was going to be a home run. But center fielder caught it. But you know what Amaro Jr. did? He tagged from first base. The guy advanced on a base from first base. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just, it rarely happens. It's usually a guy tags from second to third or third to home. Not really first to second, but you have to give that guy tremendous credit. That is a baseball player that has a high IQ, very intelligent, reads the ball perfectly, and just takes a risk. He took a risk, and you know what? And he gambled, and he paid off. Because I can guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, those players or baseball players in that situation are not going to tag from first base on a deep fly ball. Because usually they'll be halfway between, when they see a ball hit like that, they're going to be halfway between first and second. If the ball doesn't get caught, hits off the wall, they're going to be rounding second and probably going to third. Or maybe score, depending on how fast they are. But, that was a smart baseball play. Really smart. And, and it kind of put the Indians between a rock and a hard place, when they had to face either Anthony Rizzo or Ben Zobrist. And they walked Rizzo, and Zobrist got the go-ahead hit, and he wound up getting the MVP. in that game, winning his second consecutive World Series. He won it last year against the Royals when they beat the Mets. But this Cub team, this Cub team just struck adversity. Not in just this game, but this whole postseason. They were trailing when they had a 2-1 series lead, 2-1 game. They were leading the Giants 2-1 in the division series. And you thought, oh, the Giants are going to come back. They're going to make a comeback. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. Oh, it's the even year thing. And the Cubs are going to choke. They're lovable losers. They scored 4 runs in the top of the 9th. Game 4 in San Francisco. Beat the Giants in that Game 4. After the Giants had beaten Chapman late in the game. And Conor Gillespie hit the go-ahead triple in center field, which was the deepest part of the park, in AT&T Park. Then you move on to the NLCS, where they were trailing the Dodgers 2-1, and the bats were just stagnant. They were inept, and they just couldn't manufacture runs. That was a problem for the Cubs. But they bounced back. They put on a juggernaut performance in Game 4, scoring. They beat the Dodgers 10-4, beat them with Lester in Game 5, and then Kyle Hendricks closed the door on them Game 6, beat Kershaw, needless to say. And in the World Series, trailing 3-1, Indians had the momentum, and the Cubs just took it game by game. And I think for Chris Bryant, for one of the Cub players, and Chris Bryant, the home run in Game 5 off Trevor Bauer was kind of a set tone. It set the tone for the Cubs, and it gave them a little momentum, and it was kind of like a snowball effect. When you roll a snowball down the hill, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I think that home run was that little snowball you put on top of the hill and you just push it down. If you see all those old cartoons. But congratulations to the Chicago Cubs. This was a championship long in the making. 108 years is a long time between championships. And you kind of feel good for Cub fans, whether it's a younger generation, middle of the road generation, or even the older generations, like people who were in their 70s, 80s, who witnessed the Cubs in the 1945 World Series. They lost to the Tigers in 7 games. You really have to feel happy for the Cub fans. You really do. And when family members are Cub fans, or you have Cub fans that are or you have family members that are Cub fans, or huge families that are Cub fans, you think about you think about the people who are no longer living, who are deceased, saying, I wish they were here to see it. They're smiling, they're doing good, they're smiling, they're relishing in this moment, they're looking above, and that's a touching feeling for Cub fans, from generation to generation. And with that concludes our first segment.